Thank you, Chairman.
We shall now invite the Chairman to introduce our distinguished guest speaker.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have the privilege and the pleasure to introduce our feature speaker this evening, the Honourable Mr. Justice Winston Charles Anderson, Judge of the Caribbean Court of Justice. Justice Anderson is a national of Jamaica. He is a barrister of the Honourable Society of Lincoln's Inn and has been called to the bars of Barbados and Jamaica. He was appointed Professor of International Law at the University of the West Indies in 2006 and elevated to the bench of the Caribbean Court of Justice in 2010. His career at the UWI included appointments as head of the teaching department and deputy dean of the Faculty of Law. During 2003 to 2006, he served the Caribbean community as General Counsel on secondment from the University of the West Indies, and he was appointed Executive Director of the Caribbean Law Institute in 2006. In 2012, Mr. Justice Anderson was inducted as a founding member of the International Advisory Council of the United Nations Environmental Programme, UNEP. In 2013, he was appointed a member of the Advisory Commission on Environmental Law to the Organization of American States, and in 2014, a member of the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, ECLAC, a group of experts on Principle 10. His appointments in 2017 include the chairmanship of the Disciplinary and Ethics Committees of Cricket West Indies and membership of the International Cricket Council, the Code of Conduct Commission. Justice Anderson has published in numerous articles in learned journals and is the author of 5 books in the fields of public, private, international law, and environmental law. I have the distinct pleasure to invite Justice Anderson to the podium.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chief Justice, Honorable Ivor Archie, and other members of the judiciary. Chairman of the Council of Legal Education, Mr. Reginald Armour, Senior Counsel. Members of the Council of Legal Education. Principals of the 3 law schools, and particularly Principal Samaru and faculty of the Hugh Wooding Law School. Distinguished guests, honored graduates, family members, and friends. Good evening, and thank you for including me in this wonderful day of celebration. As a former academic, I am thrilled to be back in my natural habitat. It is true that I have now fully settled into my role as a judge on the Caribbean Court of Justice, but I must confess that for the first 2 years it was very difficult. I once caught myself in the dentist's chair thinking of telling him, pull out my tooth, the whole tooth, and nothing but the tooth. I wish first to congratulate the Council of Legal Education. The CLE has been one of the most enduring of our regional institutions. In the near 50 years of its existence, the Council has conscientiously discharged its responsibility to members to provide practical professional training for persons seeking to become members of the legal profession. The Council has launched the careers of thousands of attorneys at law, including those of our youngest and brightest graduating today. Thank you for a job well done. I wish also to congratulate the families and supporters of today's graduates. As the father of a recent graduate, I sympathize with your struggles, emotional and financial, over the past 2 years. In fact, as we know, the struggles go back much further than 2 years. Today, as each graduate walked across this stage, I know from experience that their success is a shared success, shared with both parents, or with a single mom, or a single dad, or with faithful guardians, or generous relatives. I know you're bursting with pride. As one politician once said, I feel you. I and the graduates thank you heartily. Thank you. And last but not least, I extend warmest congratulations to the most important group today, the graduates. Today is a special day in your life and one that you will never, ever forget. Today marks the end of a 5-year-long journey, end of studentship at the Faculty of Law and the Law School, the end, subject to what I'll say later on, to compulsory attendance at lectures and seminars and tutorials, the official transition from learning to earning, and but for a technicality yet to be observed in the Hall of Justice or a similar place, today marks the day you enter the noble profession of law. You are, for all intents and purposes, lawyers. Congratulations and welcome to the profession. I promise not to stand too long between you and your plans for the evening. For just a few minutes, I'd like to speak with you about the importance of what it means to be a lawyer. It pains me to say that lawyers in our region are often painted with a negative brush. Many in the general populace support the view that lawyers are unscrupulous, rip off their clients, betray the public trust, and are lazy and unprofessional. There are undoubtedly bad apples in the legal profession, but the widespread criticism is unwarranted. And where does this criticism emanate from? It is quite ancient. Lawyer bashing goes back to the Middle Ages and the utterance of Shakespeare's Henry VI character Dick when he said, "The first thing we do, let's kill all the lawyers." Never mind that that was said in the context where there was a treacherous plot to overthrow the king, and therefore the need to get rid of the guardians of the law as quickly as possible. The practice of lawyer bashing runs from Shakespeare to the present time. You surely would have heard of the proverbial reference to Americans as ambulance chasers. A variant of this theme is that most American lawyers get hurt in vehicular accidents when an ambulance backs up suddenly. Not even the mild-mannered Canadians have been spared. It has been said that last Canadian winter was so cold, that even the lawyers had their hands in their own pockets. These observations may or may not be funny, but they're almost always guaranteed to put a young attorney on the defensive. So I'd like to offer a kind of booster shot or inoculation against every relative, every classmate from another faculty of the university, the taxi driver who gives you a hard time about being a lawyer. Don't forget that our constitutions recognize the unique importance of law and lawyers. In the case of the Constitution of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, the third recital in the preamble recognizes that men and institutions remain free only when freedom is founded upon respect for moral and spiritual values and the rule of law. The rule of law means that no one is above the law. Everyone is subject to the law. Everyone is equal before the law. Upholding the rule of law is a raison d'etre of the legal profession, your profession. Don't ever forget that lawyers have a unique responsibility for ensuring that the rule of law prevails. Ours is the only profession to which the Constitution has dedicated an entire branch of government, the judiciary, Supreme Court, Court of Appeal, and the final appellate court. As a rule, only lawyers can represent others before our courts. This is a distinct privilege. Lawyers administer the law. And there aren't many areas of our lives that are not covered by the law, because the law is about relationships, or relationships with each other. A tenant's relationship to the landlord, an employer's relationship to an employee, the state's relationship to the citizen, a manufacturer's relationship to a consumer. Why is the regulating of our relationships so important? Because it is the route to justice and peace and prosperity. If we don't have and enforce rules in society by which we relate to each other, then things tend to fall apart. We have chaos, the rule of the jungle. Our societies become unhappy places in which to live, and few foreigners would consider investing here. Since gaining our independence and our constitutions, beginning in the 1960s, there has been a mass outward migration of Caribbean persons to the so-called developed world. Between the 1960s and 2014, over 4 million Caribbean persons migrated to the United States alone. There's sometimes a sense of entitlement to relocate, whether legally or illegally. There's a well-known story of a Jamaican woman arriving at JFK. When she was asked by the immigration officer, "Why are you desiring to enter the United States?" she replied without hesitation, "Well, you Americans are always saying that Jamaica is your backyard. I'm here to see what my front yard looks like." 2 weeks ago, I found myself in Washington, jogging the streets that connect Congress and the White House, Lincoln Memorial, and the Washington Monument. I was hugely impressed by the inscriptions on display. In approaching Congress, an edifice on the left thundered the words, "Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or of the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the governments for a redress of grievances." And as if in answer, across the road, near the FBI headquarters building, is articulated a simple and single challenge: vigilance is the eternal price of freedom. And it dawned on me in that moment that equal to, or perhaps even more than the opportunity to find a job, many Caribbean immigrants to the United States thirst to live in a society which at least outwardly strives for law and order and respect for the rule of law, where the levels of crime and corruption are at least tolerable. Our legal profession has the responsibility and the privilege to ensure that our Caribbean society becomes just as attractive a place to live, work, and pursue one's goals and interests in life as anywhere else in the world. Young lawyers like yourselves must put their energy, knowledge, skill into making a difference, into making sure that justice and fairness prevail, that the rule of law is upheld in our society. How do you go about making that difference? First and foremost, never forget your code. Prior to your formal induction into the profession, you will be required to subscribe to a code of ethics that spells out your responsibility to the state and the public, to clients, the courts, and the administration of justice, to fellow attorneys. However, it is no accident that the first substantive provision in the Legal Profession Code of Ethics of Barbados concerns the responsibility of lawyers to the profession and to themselves. Section 5 says, an attorney at law, whether in practice or not, shall uphold at all times the standards set out in this code. An attorney at law shall maintain his integrity and the honor and dignity of the profession and his own standing as a member of it, and shall encourage other attorneys at law to act similarly, both in the practice of his profession and in his private life, and shall refrain from conduct which is detrimental to the profession or which may tend to discredit it. From a negative point of view, a breach of some parts of the code may, and a breach of other parts of the code shall constitute professional misconduct. I prefer to take a positive perspective. Your adherence to the code is the surest way of making a positive contribution to advancing the rule of law. Adherence to its principles will ensure your honesty, integrity, professionalism, and diligence. So study the code, even though you have already passed the ethics exam. Keep a copy close to hand, perhaps on your bedside table. Make it your creed. It is your word of honor. Live by it. This one simple step can ensure your success in the profession. I know that not everyone receiving the legal education certificate today will ultimately have a career as a practicing lawyer. Some will find themselves drawn or perhaps pushed to other types of employment in the public sector, in the business world, in the world of academia and research, or the world of the arts. Whatever your path, you'll be able to make good use of the analytical and problem-solving skills that you have acquired in your legal studies. And whatever path you take, remember the code of principles you accept today becomes a part of your life forever, whether you remain a practicing lawyer or not. For the rest of your days, you and your actions will be judged in the light of your education and status as a member of this profession. Second, remember that the entire Caribbean is your society. The founders of the Caribbean community have given you certain legal entitlements in the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas. As a citizen of the community, you have a right to travel and stay up to 6 months in any member state. See the case of Shanique Mary against Barbados. As a university graduate, you have a right of free movement among member states to seek employment. As an attorney at law, you have a right to provide legal services, both cross-border and from an establishment in a member state other than your own. Your country might seemingly be saturated with lawyers. Other states in the community are woefully short of lawyers. So woefully short that they are proposing establishing their own law schools to train lawyers. View the entire Caribbean as your workspace. An aspect of the genius of the revised treaty is that it allows for the reallocation of talents and skills from areas where there is an oversupply to areas of greatest demand. Make use of your entitlements. You may be pleasantly surprised at the opportunities presented. And if you have any problems in enforcing your rights under the RTC, then come and see me. Thirdly, dedicate yourselves to a lifetime of legal learning. As the Zarata puts it, keep interested in your career. It is true that lawyers are always practicing because they are not perfect. The state of perfect understanding and command does not exist because the law is constantly changing, constantly in flux. Traditional areas of the law have evolved. Criminal law is no longer confined to murder, theft, rape, and similar offenses, but now extends to cross-border offenses, such as human trafficking and cyberspace crimes. Family law now extends to issues concerning surrogacy, same-sex marriages, and the rights of the child. The development of the Caribbean society requires that we be on the cutting edge of the law governing the sea, oil and natural gas, intellectual property, financial services, protection of the environment, international relations, amongst many others. Perhaps most importantly, lawyers need to constantly examine the law itself to make sure that it serves the best interests of the society. Sir Hugh Wooding, for whom this respected law school is named, when speaking at the ceremonial opening of the legal year in 1963, said, and I quote, "To my mind, the intent and meaning of the law is precisely that of disciplined endeavor in the cause of social justice. What do we do about it? Do we merely practice our profession, or do we set about informing ourselves of the law's inadequacies so that, armed with knowledge, we may give an impetus to social reform? Put another way, I would phrase it in this wise, that our purpose should not be limited to administering laws justly, but should extend to seeing that the laws are just," end quote. The CCJ Academy for Law, of which I have the pleasure to be chairman, is working with the Council of Legal Education to encourage our bar associations to embrace the concept of continuing legal education. Already it is compulsory in Jamaica. The Legal Profession Act in that country was amended in 2012 to require that as a condition of the issuing of a practicing certification to an attorney at law, the General Legal Counsel must be satisfied that the attorney has complied with specified requirements for continuing legal professional development. The CCJ Academy will host its 5th biannual conference this December in Kingston, Jamaica, jointly with the General Legal Counsel, to allow Jamaican attorneys to fulfill the requirements prescribed pursuant to the Act. The theme of the conference will be "The Future of Legal Practice in the Caribbean, a Catalyst for Success," and you're all invited to attend. Fourth and finally, stay humble and grateful. Remember those who have been good to you, without whom this day would not have been possible. Thank them repeatedly, and not just on today. And to the extent that you can, and when you can, pay it forward. You have been entrusted with the wonderful task of helping people every day, and of helping everyday people. This is an awesome privilege. At many points in your career, you will become the single most important person in the life of another human being. You may have to ensure that the will of a dying man accurately reflects his wishes for the disposition of his property. A life insurance policy is paid so that children beneficiaries will not become destitute. A contract is honored so that a business doesn't go under. A woman is not discriminated or harassed in the workplace. An innocent man is not punished for a crime he did not commit. You may aspire to leadership in government, to reimagine and revitalize a new Caribbean society. You may choose to do so as an Attorney General, a Prime Minister, a Chief Justice, a CCJ President, a President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Over the years, graduates of this law school have filled all of these positions of responsibility and many more. Your community needs you to aspire to governance, to build a society of peace, justice, and law. Many of the leaders whom this world most admire and who have been catalysts for change have been members of our profession. Nelson Mandela, Mahatma Gandhi, Abraham Lincoln. There is no reason why you should not follow in their footsteps. More than 200 years ago, the distinguished American jurist Oliver Wendell Holmes expressed his belief that no profession was as rewarding as the law. In what other profession, he asked, does one plunge so deep into the stream of life, so share its passions, its battles, its despair, its triumphs? You have a terrific future ahead of you. You can be part of a generation of new ideas, skills, and talents that changes the world. So have at it. Plunge deeply. Thank you again for allowing me to share this wonderful day with you. Again, my sincere congratulations to you all. And again, welcome to the profession.